Earlier this week, we had morality with Motamedi. The question was, how do you decide who gets limited medical resources and medical treatment? Lewis sort of generally came up with the idea that you have to look at who has the most potential for life at that time if treated. This would be considering age. This would be considering pre-existing or terminal conditions that individuals may have. We've now given it 48 hours to get feedback from our audience. And there were some really interesting suggestions, Lewis, about how we could ethically decide who to treat, who to provide healthcare to in a situation where the demand exceeds the supply. One person emailed me and said, hey, David, insurance companies have already figured this entire thing out. The 1% wins. There's no need to worry about it at all. Yeah, that's true. And we sort of discussed that, right? What about the people with more money? And we said, hey, that's kind of already the system. So we want to talk about what would be a more moral or ethical way.
Right. We said, I guess our setting was kind of this post-apocalyptic setting, or you're in some situation like that. So yes, let's throw out whatever our governments have instituted.
Another idea someone sent in is, what about considering what the person is expected to add to society? People with higher skilled jobs are given priority. Interesting, very complex, right? I mean, we've determined that, for example, a lot of people who work in finance on Wall Street, that their activity adds very, very little by way of an economic multiplier to society. Their expected earnings are quite high. So should we be thinking about their expected earnings as a measure of what they add to society? Or should we be passing some sort of moral judgment over the type of work that they do? Interesting idea, but also pretty complicated to actually put into action. And then someone else wrote in saying, hey, you treat the most critical people that you think you could reasonably save first. So we discussed, Lewis, if you just treat the most injured people, you're likely going to be treating people that ultimately aren't going to be saved, and maybe less injured people become more critical during that time.
Yeah,
so someone wrote in saying you find the most critical people that you think you can probably save and you go to them.
We kind of touched on that. Yeah, I think I said that if someone is injured very badly, but if they can clearly be saved.
Yeah.
I guess, of course, then depending on their general ailments, age, and what they can add, all of that stuff. It's complicated.
Another person wrote in saying first come, first serve. Not really a valid idea in our scenario, because the idea was, there's a bunch of hurt people and the medical resources show up. Or if you're in a hospital, everyone sort of shows up at the same time. So first come, first serve. That doesn't really apply to our circumstances. Someone else said you treat women first, because the future of population depends on women. So you need to prioritize saving women, keeping women alive.
Okay, well, last I knew, human women could not reproduce asexually, so I don't understand that.
Yeah, I get that, Lewis, but a woman can only have birth one child or twins, whatever. She can only be pregnant once at a time, whereas one man can impregnate numerous women simultaneously, right? So I think that would be the argument. You can, if this is so bad that the population is going to be reduced, by saving women, you support the ability of the population to recover more quickly.
There is some truth to that. I guess it would depend on your specific situation, if it is, in fact, some post-apocalyptic setting.
And the last idea that came in that was interesting is, if your country is at war at the time of this, you treat the military-aged males first, because those are who are going to win, potentially, whatever war you're fighting at that time. So really interesting, Lewis. So far, both 2016 Morality with Motamedis have brought in a lot of interesting ideas from the audience, and we will have another instance of Morality with Motamedi in about a week and a half.